Hello! Today I'll be taking a break from my niche content of Pokemon and instead focusing on where the real money is. Hunter the Parenting. And if you've been watching Hunter the Parenting, you'll have known that they have just started a new arc, 4 episodes long, where they're solving a mystery. And I want to see if I can solve that mystery with only the first episode. To start with, you should go watch that episode. You should watch all of Hunter the Parenting. You should probably just watch all of Alpha Busa's content. It's very good. Better than this, for sure. So we're going to start by making a few assumptions. First of all, that Alpha Busa would want to stick to the main episodes for evidence in this mystery. It's just the most logical assumption to make. The people watching the episodes should be able to just watch the episodes. The audio logs will only really matter if they're referenced in the episodes directly. This actually means that 7 of the 12 characters, quote-unquote, introduced in episode 4, their introduction is in an audio log. Marcus goes pubbing, but that isn't referenced at any point in the episode, so take anything said in that episode with a heavy grain of salt. I'm also, of course, making the assumption that the episode is solvable, that the mystery can be deduced with just the evidence within the episode. And, of course, the other assumption is that I could easily be wrong. Don't take my word as gospel. Please don't get angry. Let's get a little bit genre savvy and just think about the cliches and tropes that are very common in mysteries, and they're common for a reason, just to keep in the back of our minds as we watch these episodes. One of the obvious cliches is that there's more than one conspirator. There is no reason to say that there's only one ghoul, or that the ghoul doesn't have an ally, someone that they're blackmailing maybe. Then there's the trope of the butler did it. I don't mean a literal butler. I mean that it's somebody who is in the background, somebody who other people don't regard very highly or basically at all, who was masterminding the whole thing, letting the main characters fight amongst themselves as they quietly got everything that they wanted, until the mystery is revealed. The villain could have easily faked their own attack. It's very easy to survive a run with the murderer if you're the murderer. And red herrings, the obvious culprit is never the real culprit. Usually in mysteries, there's a second, far less important conspiracy going on. Something like adultery, or someone having an inheritance dispute, a robbery. The possibilities are endless. They serve as a point to distract and mislead the protagonists as they try to find the real culprit. Now that we understand more about the mystery genre, let's go and look at our cast. There's the D family, with their patriarch, Big D, aka Kevin Wetsworth. He's a father, a grandfather, Arcum's beloved ex. And Remold might actually be right about him. I don't think that D is just here to catch the ghoul. I actually have him on a interesting suspicion level, but not as the ghoul, obviously. Then we have Marcus. Marcus is Dee's son, Kitten's fiancé, and he took a beating in the last episode. He is, though, still very buff. He is obviously not the ghoul. Then we have Kitten, Dee's son-in-law. Grima is his ex. He's mostly sane, serves as a audience surrogate, seems to be the most interested person in solving this mystery. I give him a suspect level of 0. Next up, let's look at the High Arcanum. We have Remold Blacklaw. He's a very religious Belgian, and Occam's uncle. Where D hunts vampires, Remold hunts werebeasts. Or at least that's what it seems like for now. He has full access across the chapter house, and he is not the ghoul. It's not him. His suspect level is low, but that is because I technically don't have any reason to say that he is definitely not the ghoul. Then we have Arcum. He is the head of the Arcum, at least this chapter house, and a noted homosexual. He is perpetually being undermined by Remeld and Dee, and the moment he's unconscious, Dr. Waters is taking over. He has full access across the chapter house, and I put him as suspect level high. Then we got Brock's boys. Now, Brock Blacklaw is the son of Remeld, and the closest thing to an oak in all of Norfolk. I would say all of England, but it is England, and Liverpool is in England. If Brock was the Ghoul, he is not smart. He would have just crumped everyone. He has staff access, and he is not a suspect of anything. He's too dumb to have a conspiracy. We have Giles! He works at the 99p store, and he's Brock's friend. That 99p store is run by vampires. He has staff access and a middling suspect level. Despite the fact he definitely works for vampires, I don't think he is a ghoul for those vampires. Then we got Spit. He's a normal guy, pretty average, except for the fact that he is seemingly going insane. He is possibly a lycanthrope of some sort. He has staff access, and he is incredibly suspicious, but I think that is just a red herring. Next we have the help. We've got Amanda Bergamot. She seems clueless of vampires, and according to Remeld, she is highly conductive. She seems nice and honest, and she's got staff access. Only a middling suspect level. And then we have Matilda Wilde. She is a much older maid. She hates her job and she smokes indoors. There are some theories that she might be a lycanthrope, but I do not think so. On the contrary, my opinion of her is that she's most likely a former member of the Hell's Fuckers. I don't have much evidence to support this. She is clearly barely literate, as you can see by her name tag in the corner there. She seems to know about vampires to a certain degree, which the Hell's Fuckers are tied with vampires. Her general attitude seems like one that someone might have if they had a very wild and rough adolescence and early adulthood, and then tried to go straight. Now we have the professors. We've got Gloria Waters. She's a scholar of psychotronic studies. If you don't know what psychotronics are, you can join the club. I had to look it up. It is a study of using the human brain and its brainwaves to develop psychic powers. She is also the cocaine doctor that Matilda talks about, as evident by her powdered nose with Arcum, as well as powdered nose when they go to find Vernon. She has full access around the facilities. She is a very likely suspect. Next we have Vernon Fatigue. He is a scholar of lycanthropy lore, and he is deceased. He had full access. I do not think that he killed himself via explosion. He is not the Ghoul. Next, let's look at the students. We've got Brother Harry Jacket. He's a scholar of Highland lore. He's a good friend of Marcus and likes working out. He has student access and limited staff access. Then we have Sister Elise. She is a scholar of theological research. She is very thick goth, and she is ready to eat some dodo meat. She has student access, and a quick mini-theory here is that I think Elise might be trans. The fact she scratched out brother and wrote in sister makes it seem like she really cares about her gender identity. This does not matter. Trans rights are human rights after all. I just thought it was neat. Next we have Brother Grimmelcoon. She is a scholar of the Orient. She carries around a yaoi paddle, dated kitten, and called him Uke Boy. Oh boy, if only we knew what those words meant. But we'd have to get a language lesson for that. It's time for the language lesson. In Japanese, yaoi is a romance or sexual partnership between two men. Uke means that you are a bottom in that context. So in other words, we have just learned the sexual preferences of both Marcus and Kitten thanks to Grima. You're welcome. Now, a lot of things happen in the episode, so I've narrowed it down to a few events that I believe are more important, that have the evidence that we actually need to solve the mystery. So let's start looking at them. We begin before the episode starts with the Ghoul's infiltration. This information comes from Kevin, who left the Camarilla years ago. But there is an interesting wrinkle to this. Do we know for sure that archive access is what this Ghoul is looking for? In all the characterization of the Camarilla Regent, she seems to not care about mortals at all, bleeding them dry of money and finances, as Kevin says. She barely knows how to work a phone in the 99p store audio log. She just seems very detached from reality. What she seems interested in is magical research, which, what do you know, the chapter house is doing in spades. So while I think they do want archive access, I don't think it's to get the hunters. I think they're just looking to read up on what everyone's researching. Fast forwarding to the actual events of the episode, Spit starts to go a little bit insane. In the archives, he talks about how he thinks he's currently at a party of some sort. There are two possibilities of what is going on with Spit. One is that he is some kind of werebear, werewolf, what have you. And he is going insane due to werewolf dementia, which is mentioned in the audio log of Kitten making Dee breakfast. If he is a lycanthrope, we have to ask the question of when was he infected? Remmel did talk about going on werebear safaris. Spit says that he's a new hire. New hire by the chapter house, new hire by Remmel to go on safaris, new hire by Brock to hang out with him. It's unclear as to exactly what that means, but I don't think that he was trusted enough to go on one of those safaris. The other option is that it's vampire mind control. Vampire mind control does seem more reasonable, since we have seen that before. The great and mighty Kevin did it on Dee, and all three of his sons in the cave. If it is vampire mind control, we actually have an interesting piece of information. How to break that mind control. As long as you can avoid eye contact and the vampire fails to maintain concentration, the mind control will end. Next, we have Elise stealing keys, and also cigarettes and the wallet from Giles. It is definitely her who steals them. All we see her do with these objects that are stolen is that she has a cigarette in her mouth, unlit. Where did she smoke the cigarette? The best place to smoke would be the security room. It is the place with the best ventilation. Now, she would need keys, though, to get security access. And what do you know? She just stole the keys, needing security access. The box of cigarettes, though, they would eventually end up in Matilda's hands after the time skip. So clearly Elise had some run-in with Matilda. And also the wallet is still missing. That could be more for comedy than anything else. Next, there's a time skip. And the most interesting thing about it is that Grima ends up inside of security room. The obvious question now being, how did she get in to the security room? Occam's razor, simplest answer with the least assumptions, is that Elise, who was looking for Grima and wanted to smoke somewhere, went to the security room with Grima to talk to her in private. The other option is that Grima could have used the vents to get around. Now, the vents being used as a transport method is mentioned in Marcus Goes Pubbing, so I don't know how much we can rely on that, but the vents are very prominent in the backgrounds of several shots. However Grima got in, Elise also had an ability to get in herself. so it seems likely that Elise and Grima spent some time talking. For some reason, Elise tells Kitten that she doesn't know where Grima is, which is odd, but we can prove that's a lie, thanks to Matilda. She has Giles's box of cigarettes that was stolen by Elise. So Elise and Matilda had to meet up at some point. And according to the map on the side of your screen, Matilda went to the kitchen from the security room. From that, it seems most likely that Matilda, Elise, and Grima were all in the security room together at some point in time, for Elise to talk to Grima and Elise to hand off the cigarettes to Matilda. Another piece of evidence is Elise's hair tie. When Kitten meets with Elise after the time skip, Elise is tying her hair up. Presumably, she just let her hair down somewhere. But how did she lose track of her hair tie? The hair tie will show up again. Grima has it. It's a real blink and you miss it moment. I have a screenshot of it on the screen right now. My theory on how she lost a hair tie and how Grima has it is that Grima and Elise had a, shall we say, physical moment in the security room. Some very heavy petting going on, potentially. And Matilda walked in. Elise gave Matilda the cigarettes and asked Matilda to keep anyone else away from the security room for a bit, before proceeding to hastily get dressed. The moment had been ruined after all, and in her haste, she forgot to put her hair back up. So she went to her room to go get another hair tie. Grima, still in the room getting herself all made up, was slightly slower and found the hair tie, and was meaning to hand it back off to Elise later. All of this doesn't prove much, except that Elise and Grima were both together for probably an extensive period of time during the time skip. And also that Matilda was involved in some way in whatever those two were doing. The next event, although timeline-wise we don't know when it actually occurred, is that Arcum was attacked. There are 3 methods for the attack to have been carried out. One is that while everyone was leaving, the assailant stayed behind to attack Arcum. Spit is my number 1 suspect for this, since we don't see him looking over the banister watching the old person war, so he's likely the last person to leave the archives. Of course, though we don't even see him in the same room as Arcum, we can't actually say that with any confirmation. If it's one, we don't have much evidence for who could or couldn't have stayed behind. Option number 2 is that someone with archive access managed to sneak into the archives, attack Arcum, and leave. The only person who had that option would have been Matilda. She was alone at the time in her office, doing cocaine apparently. Or 3, Grima, or someone else, used the vents to get in to the archive. Arcum says that there's no other ways in, but the vents in the background, while he's saying there's no other ways to get in, show otherwise. But there is a problem with both theories 2 and 3 for when Arcum was attacked. And that is the fact that Arcum lived. If someone snuck into the archives, they would have all the time in the world to make sure that Arcum was dead. And if someone went in through the vents, again, they would have all the time in the world to make sure that Arcum was dead. Someone who did die for sure, though, was Lord Fatu. It's a classic locked door mystery. Fatu is brutally murdered, ripped apart, while locked in a room alone with Spit. Most of the cast is downstairs having a fight with Remold, who isn't accounted for during that fight. Giles was up in the bar and ends up being stuck in the washroom. The stuffed bear in the room fell over and blocked the doorway. Professor Waters was doing cocaine. Her nose is once again powdered when they arrive at the door. Matilda and Harry at this time were presumably in Arcum's office, helping him recuperate after the attack. If Spit did this murder, which I personally believe he did do, he turned into a were-something, except his clothes are all intact. I don't know that much about were-things, but I'm pretty sure that the clothes are damaged when you transform. His clothes are also completely covered in blood, so if the clothes are subsumed into the form, how did they get covered in blood? 2 is that Spit is under mind control, and he might be serving as a conduit for Tremere magic, or have just ripped him apart with his bare hands. So remember the rules of mind control. Someone would have had to be concentrating really hard to get Spit to be murdering Vernon. Who could concentrate at this time? No one in the fight downstairs could have concentrated. So let's just quickly write off a few characters. Both Amanda and Grima were zapped pretty horribly. There was almost certainly no way they could maintain a concentration on their mind control. Harry, when Arcum was attacked, he was either moving the box or working out with Marcus for several hours. He had no opportunity to attack Arcum. Elise. Well, if she attacked Arcum as the people left, she then immediately drew more attention to herself by stealing a bunch of stuff. If she was the Ghoul, she would want to be as innocent seeming as possible. She would also have had to keep her concentration up while touching Grima, who was serving as a live wire. Then we have Giles. Giles is incredibly suspicious. He was the last one to see Spit and Vernon before the incident. There is a problem with Giles as the Ghoul. In the background of Kitten talking to Matilda, we can see Remold moving the polygraph downstairs, and Giles, his face is as red as a strawberry, clearly struggling to carry his part of the polygraph. Ghoul blood is established to give you very good stamina and physical attributes. If he had Ghoul blood, he would not be struggling to carry the polygraph. Now here are my 4 people who are doing nasty things. D. He's not the Ghoul, but I think he's actually in here to destroy parts of the archives, specifically the Hunter archives. He wants himself to not have to fear a repeat of this scenario. Then there's Spit, who is being mind-controlled, I believe. That or he is a lycanthrope who's gone insane. Either way, it's hard to blame him for all of this. Then there's Arcum. Arcum had the opportunity to fake himself being attacked, and he could have mind-controlled Spit while he was resting up in his office. And Dr. Waters, scholar on the topic of mind control, who could be using cocaine to boost mental fortitude. Vampire blood in this episode is also mentioned as a potent narcotic, and Dr. Waters is already doing drugs, so it's not much of a stretch. The profile for Arcum as the killer. He removed any potential witnesses of his attack from the archives. He could have told everyone to just sit down in the archives and wait. They didn't have to remove the box of tessellation from the archives. It seems like a rather dumb move to make, but he might have just made a dumb move. He would also know that leaving Dee and Remold unsupervised would cause them to start fighting, raising tensions among the group, causing everyone to break up, lack of trust. And then, after his quote-unquote attack, tensions would spike even more, the groups would fracture even more, people would fight. And now, with Fatu dead, he has justification to do whatever he wants to get the Ghoul. All he has to do now is blame Spit, and if anyone says not to, he can point towards Vernon's murder, the high tensions, pit everyone against each other, to purge anyone who's onto him. And now, Dr. Waters. there needs to be a question about the Ghoul. Why didn't the Ghoul kill Arcum? And that needs another question to answer. How does the Ghoul escape the Arcanum alive? In order to do that, they need to pin the blame on somebody else. Blame has been mostly moved to Spit, but he isn't actually the Ghoul? So if this is Dr. Waters, she can get a judge that she can control with her mind powers. Arcum, weakened after being attacked, could have been mentally dominated. And now with Waters in the back of his mind, controlling or manipulating his actions, she can do exactly what I proposed Arcum could do in the previous slide. Direct everyone's attention towards Spit, purge people she doesn't like, and possibly, after all of this, take control of the chapter house. She also did some suspicious actions of her own. She was the second person to leave the group, both times that the group started splitting up. The first time, it was to be alone. The second time, it was to help Arcum. But when she comes back, she's done cocaine. So she might have gone off on her own after getting Harry and Matilda to drag off Arcum. She was also on the scene to investigate Arcum's wounds before most of the cast had even arrived at the archives. Waters is incredibly suspicious, and in my mind, she is the most likely murderer. Thank you for watching the video. Like, comment, do all of that stuff. And yeah, don't trust Dr. Waters. I also wouldn't trust Arcum. He's either the Ghoul or he's mind-controlled by the Ghoul. And don't kill Spit. He just needs more Ritalin.